There comes a moment in life when you have to decide, are you playing it safe or are you all in? This is All In Empowerment, the podcast where we crush fears and step boldly into the life you were meant to live. I'm your host, Betsy Martell, coach and adventurer, here to push you past your limits and unlock your full potential. It's time to level up your life because empowerment isn't just a mindset, it's a commitment. So are you ready? Because in this space, we don't tiptoe, we go all in. All right, welcome to episode 6, Awakening Together, a journey of friendship, faith, and freedom with Rick Gregory. I am so happy to be joined by my good friend Rick Gregory today. Let me give you a little introduction. Rick Gregory's journey is a profound testament to resilience, authenticity, and spiritual awakening. After a life-changing spiritual experience at 19, Rick devoted over 2 decades to biblical studies and pastoral ministry. Despite his dedication, he grappled with his identity, having known from an early age that he was gay. Believing that faith would fix him, he married and served as a pastor, but eventually realized that true acceptance lay in embracing his authentic self. This realization led to significant life changes, leaving the pastorate, navigating divorce, and confronting personal loss, including the passing of his partner, Kevin. Amidst grief and struggles with alcoholism, Rick found a path to healing and transformation. He embarked on a decade-long journey of deconstructing traditional religious beliefs, ultimately discovering a personal understanding of the divine as unconditional love. Today, Rick serves as a certified spiritual life coach and founder of the Awakened Collective, guiding others towards self-discovery and spiritual growth. His story inspires us to embrace our true selves and recognize that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So, hey, welcome, Rick.
Welcome. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, let me tell the story about how we met. It was kind of love at first sight. Um, Rick and I were in a what would you say it was?
An entrepreneurial workshop,
Yes,
something like that.
thank you, entrepreneurial workshop, and so we had this small group, where we met on Zoom, and the first time that we met, I was the first one to introduce myself, and so I introduced myself, told everybody kind of how I got there, et cetera, et cetera, and Rick went next, and the first thing that Rick said was, do you remember, Rick?
I love you already.
He's like, I and I didn't know anything about Rick, and I was like, "Wow, this guy loves me already, okay." Um, so we became good friends, so we started talking outside of that group, and really became good friends, and then we ended up going to a self-development seminar. It was a weekend in Denver, and, I think going through that experience, we started to kind of grow together and learn together and support each other and really just became really good friends through that. So that's how we're here today. And he is the yin to my yang. I am not a very spiritual person. And so he is the one that helps me in that arena. And I think everything that he talks about really is resonates with me because I grew up Catholic and I left the Catholic religion because anyway, for those of you Catholics out there, I don't want to offend anybody, but it wasn't for me. Um, and I just never went back to religion. I didn't believe in it. And as Rick will tell you, go ahead, Rick, tell me the difference between religion and spirituality.
Religion is usually based in dogma, the do's and don'ts, following the letter of the law, following the letter of whatever is given to you. Spirituality is going inward. It's recognizing that the God that you've been reaching for outside of yourself dwells within yourself. And so it's going inside rather than external.
Yeah, it's kind of so when my kids would ask when they were younger, they would say, "Mom, all my friends go to church. We don't go to church. How come we don't go to church? What do we believe in?" And I said, "Listen, you don't have to have a religion." I said, "I want you to just be a good person." I said, "Even if that's believing in a version of a higher self," right? So your God could just be you at a higher level, right? Always striving to be the best that you can be and to be a good person. And so maybe that's would you say that's kind of similar?
Yes. I look at it like there are paths, and this is something that I was guilty of, that I think all paths are leading us to the same place. We're just at different places on our journeys. If it wasn't for religion, I probably would never have gotten to the place where I had a spiritual experience and decided that the right thing to do was to go inward. And to be open to teachings that were different than what I grew up in. But, when I was in the place of religion, pastoring a church, all the things that go along with that. It was as if I was watching everyone walk. I was the one walking around the bottom of a mountain. If you think of God as at the top of this mountain, just as a metaphor, um, I was going around telling everyone else that the path they were taking up the mountain was not right. And yet I was the one that was just walking around the base of the mountain, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
But I think all paths, because I think that that's the path that we are on as these human beings, spiritual beings having a human experience, is that we're all on a path to waking up, to remembering that we came from love, we are love, and just waking up to who we are. But it takes time, it takes experience, and we're all on a journey.
Mhm. So tell me, as I said in the intro, you had an amazing spiritual awakening at experience, I should say, at the age of 19. Tell us a bit about that.
I will. But first, Betsy, I just want to, because I wanted to go back a minute and just
Yeah.
tell you the reason why in that first meeting that I just knew from that moment that I loved you was because of your amazing energy. My experience of you is resilient, loving, kind, compassionate. You attract the downtrodden and you are a helper of others. You are a servant. And I just love you so much. And who would have thought we'd be here today looking at our lives, you know?
I know. Thank you so much, by the way, that's so sweet.
But I love
Yeah,
you.
no, isn't it amazing, like, where we were at that time to where we are now?
Mm-hmm.
And it
Absolutely.
has so much to do with the work that we've done, and I know that you and I have had discussions over the last few years where, it was either you or me felt stuck and why are we doing this? And,
Mm-hmm.
when are we gonna start to see, right, the fruits of our labor and the benefits and the things like that? And, I think we can attribute it to, uh doing all the work cumulatively, but I think ALA, and we're not gonna get into a big discussion about ALA today because we could do that forever, but we both went to ALA, which is Ascension Leadership Academy, and it was transformative to say the least.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We are evolving.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, all right, so let me pick up with that question. So, I grew up in a pretty dysfunctional family, like a lot of us did. There was a lot of alcoholism, just a lot of craziness, and knowing from the age of 5 that I was gay, but it's not something that you talk about around the dinner table in the '60s. That was not,
And
that
now
wasn't talked about.
I sorry to interrupt, but just real quick, because there's so many people that would say there's no way that you would know that you're gay at 5. How would you know that
Mhm.
you're gay at 5? You don't even really have sexuality, so to speak, at that age. So, how would you describe what it was that made you realize that you were gay?
When my heart would be beating out of my chest with certain boys on the playground. I just felt love for them. I wanted to be with them. I wanted to know them. I hung out with the girls because I was afraid of the boys. I was afraid of them seeing me. Or detecting that from me. So my friends were all girls growing up. I hung out at the playground and the play set when everybody else was playing football. I didn't go there. I don't know. It's hard to say. I just knew that I was very much attracted to boys, and it wasn't really a sexual thing. I mean, this is funny. I would run track at gym and pretend that Donny Osmond was running beside me. So there you go.
I love that. Donny Osmond, I love that. Uh, okay, that may show how old we are.
Uh,
It's all
so
good. And you tripped Marie, like, she's like she's, like, way back. Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
too
Okay,
funny.
keep going, I wanna hear more.
Oh, so anyway, so I was raised Catholic, and from a very early age, I believed that there was a God. I didn't really understand. I still can't say that I completely understand. God is a mystery, but I grew up wanting to know more. I was diligent and learning my prayers as a kid, and we had a priest come over the house to hear my prayers so that I could get my communion, and then I had my confirmation, and I was in church all the time, and actually ended up we were me and my family were musicians, so we played at the folk masses and all of that. Um, I had a brother who, in the midst of all that, had an experience in another church and had become a born again Christian. And he would come home and hand out pamphlets. He handed me a pamphlet that I read that just basically said, "Do read these prayers, or you going to hell." And he was very, I don't know, his personality changed. It got kind of dark, if in my perception anyway. It seemed angry. When I questioned him on this piece of paper and said, what if someone in Zimbabwe never gets this pamphlet that you handed me? Are they going to hell? He said, "Don't you worry about them. You just worry about your own soul." And he told us all we were going to hell because we were Catholic, just because we were Catholic. He said we weren't Christians, we were Catholic. Um, well, that bothered me, and we were 6 years apart in age, so we weren't real close. But um, what happened was I was in a car accident at 19 and totaled my dad's car, and in an intersection right up the street from my house. And I was with a good friend of mine who I partied with all the time, and he invited me it was like a week later, not even a full week later, that he called me and invited me to a Bible study. Now, you'd have to know this kid. I was telling you, Betsy, before we got on this call, he was kind of like Woodstockish. He had long, dark, curly hair. He was a musician, played the drums. We both did drugs and smoked pot together and all that. So for him to call me and invite me to a Bible study was really bizarre. And I really didn't want anything to do with it because it just reminded me of my brother. And I thought that I had lost my friend, um, to this whatever. In my mind, it was a cult at the time. Well, 2 weeks later, I was in another car accident in the same intersection. This time, totaled my mother's car. A woman ran a red light. Both times, it was someone running a red light. But after the first time, I was extremely careful going through that intersection. But a woman hit me in a van. Her van flipped over. It was a nightmare. And as it was just a few blocks up from my house, I walked home, and both times I came home obviously visibly upset. My parents wanting to know what happened. Can you imagine coming home and telling them that they have no car now in the family because the other one's still being worked on and now another one's down? And I was just, I don't know, at that time I started asking myself a lot of questions. I started the question about, is there life after death? I could have easily been killed in this accident. Why wasn't I? What's going on here? And I was reminded of that call, and actually talked to my friend again, who again invited me to come on. It was a Wednesday night, and at the end of this conversation, he told me that he loved me. And if you knew this kid, you would know that that was completely out of character. Something had happened with him. Now, he wasn't gay by any stretch of the imagination. So something had happened with this kid. And I decided to go. And I sat in this room with a bunch of other people listening to this man talk about a God in a way that I had never heard of. A God who was all loving, unconditionally loving and merciful. They kept no record of my wrongs. He went on and on and on. And I left that place feeling changed. Something happened inside me. And I went home. Here we are now. I go home, tears in my eyes again. And my mother's like, "What the hell? What did you do now?" And I was like, "Mom, I don't know how to explain it, but I think I've actually found God tonight." And as a kid, it was all new. I didn't really know how to explain it. I still don't know how to put spiritual experiences into this English language, but um, my brother hears that conversation, the one I mentioned, and he comes out into the kitchen. He's like, "What do you mean you found God?" And I said, I think I found God tonight. And he goes, where were you at? I said, it was at a Bible study that I said this church group rented a hall at this karate school hall up the street. That was all he needed to hear. And he said, you didn't find God, you found yourself in a cult. And, again, as a kid, and this all being new, I was just flooded with, oh my God, what if he's right? What if none of this is real? What have I gotten myself into? What if my friend Skip is in something he shouldn't be in? I just went to my bedroom and sat in my bed and was really, really distraught, emotional, um, crying actually. And out of nowhere, in the midst of that chaos in my mind, it was like all I can describe it again, spiritual experience I can't describe really well, but it was like a telepathic thought. I didn't hear a voice, nothing like that. But this thought dropped into my head in the midst of the chaos and said, see how much you love me already that you'd be this upset to think you've lost me. And I was floored. I had and even now, I still when I was sharing with you, I get goosebumps. I was floored. I had peace that went just through my entire body, and I went right to sleep. The next morning, my mom took me to get some clothes at a mall nearby, and it was at least two times, if not three, that I had to ask her if my feet were touching the ground. She looked at me like I was high, but I'm like, Mom, it's not that. I can't feel the ground under my feet. I felt like I was hovering over the ground. So that was that spiritual experience, which then led me to decades of religion. I started going to church and reading the Bible and studying and all of that goes with that. And then I soon got into areas of service where I was the music director.
And
That's where
what was
I
the
got
church at that time? What type of
the church.
church?
It was actually a Pentecostal church. It was no one swinging from chandeliers or anything like that, but it was a church that believed in all of the gifts of the Spirit and the gifts of healing. Speaking in tongues was one of them, but they were all, just all of the gifts that are outlined in the Bible. They believed that still existed today. Where a lot of churches don't believe that. You read the Bible, but they don't believe that a lot of those things are actually um, I don't know if I use the word available to us or are real today. So it was a really good experience. I enjoyed that church. I learned a lot, had a lot of questions. But typically, in an environment like that, I had found over the years that most people are not talking about what's going on within them. They're not talking about their struggles. They're not talking about things like, am I gay?
Well,
You would,
were you outwardly gay at that time?
oh no, no, I
Okay,
didn't
so
actually didn't really come out until I was about 39.
okay.
Um, so no, it was a long time coming.
So,
So,
okay, so take us to that because the other really interesting thing is that you got married knowing that you were gay.
hmm so we were in the church. My now former wife was a friend of the family. Actually, she was one of my sister's best friends, and she started coming to the church, and we started hanging out. Next thing you know, we were dating. And in my mind, I believed, from what I was taught in church, that this being gay was wrong. It was not, there's all kinds of scriptures. Actually, there's probably only six in the whole Bible that people can understand that speak to that. That's another story. Even the word homosexual was only added to the Bible about 300 years ago. It actually was a word that meant pervert. Um, so anyway, I had a lot of guilt and shame. I had that all my life, but even more so in the church. I struggled with it, believed that God was not happy about it. So I did my best to stay on the straight and narrow. I believed that I wanted to have a family. I thought that that's what life was about. So I we started dating, as I said, and then I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. Before we were married, I told her I didn't feel right going into a marriage with her, not knowing the conflict that was in me. So I told her that I was more attracted to men than women. But we both believed it was wrong, and that we believed that through faith, God would fix me. Um, and that didn't happen, you know.
It doesn't
So
work that way. We know that
it
now.
was, yeah. And there were moments in our marriage where it was extremely difficult. It's obvious now looking back. But it was about, I was 39, I think, when I finally said enough is enough. I had been pastoring a church. I stepped down from pastoring the church because I knew if I had told them the truth about me, I would have been asked to leave anyway. So I figured I would find someone that the church would agree to have take my place, and would try to make this as smooth a transaction as possible. I mean, when you're I had all these people that loved me, and I loved them. The church grew from like 12 people to close to 100 on good days. And yet you look out in this sea of people and you realize that none of them really know you.
Mm.
And if they really knew you, would they still love you? And I just could not do it anymore. I finally said, I have got to live my authentic life. I have got to live myself. This bifurcated life in my mind is going to kill me, and it's not
Exhausting.
helping my family at all.
Mhm.
Um, so I left the pastorate. I separated, and that is, we were divorced. I met the love of my life at the time, and um,
And
Kevin.
that was Kevin? Yeah.
Hmm. And my kids moved in with us. It was We traveled everywhere. It was wonderful. But he had a work-related injury and was on prescribed pain medication for years before I met him. And at this point in my life, I had become an alcoholic. I don't think I had admitted I was one at this point. Everyone else knew, but not me. And yet he was a drug and alcohol counselor at a rehab center. So that made for interesting conversation, me walking around the house with my cup of booze. But we had a wonderful life together. And one night he ran out of pain medication. He was ready for his third surgery, and he was getting prescriptions mailed from Boston every 3 weeks, and he was good. His work knew that he was taking it. He was drug tested to make sure that he wasn't um, doing more than he should, but he would still run out a few days early. And this neighbor, he asked a neighbor if she had anything for pain one night after helping her in her yard all day. He was pretty sore, and he took what she gave him. We didn't know what it was at the time, but we went to bed that night ready for a 4-day weekend on the beach. And I remember waking up at, like, I don't know, it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and we had the air conditioning on the room, and he was cold, and the blankets were down beyond his shoulders. And I just thought that it was from the air conditioning, and I pulled the blankets up over his shoulders. And at about 6:15 the next morning, I got up and found that he had passed. Um, that was the darkest time of my life.
Yeah, it's terrible. What what
And
what was the drug that he had taken?
um, uh, timed release morphine. It looked the same as probably what he had been taking, but he took, and probably took what he would have taken if it was the Percocet he was taking, but it had a totally different effect, and he went into respiratory arrest in his sleep. Um, and so
That's
that catapulted me into, really went downhill fast with the drinking. And it was my daughter who was also in the programs. It is a family disease. I have two of my three children are in recovery, and have been for quite some time. But she's the one that got me into AA the first time around. But let me tell you, the thoughts that came back to mind, we don't, unless we do the inner work that you and I know all too well. We are still wide open for those thoughts to come rushing back in and tell us that they are true. And some of the thoughts that came back in for me is, Rick, this is what you get for violating God's command. God is not in favor of you being gay. This is all your fault.
mm,
All of that stuff came back in. But through the program of recovery, which is very much like things that we learn in ALA, and doing the inner work, my life has completely changed today.
yeah, that's amazing. And I've talked about this a couple times on the podcast, but the work is never really done.
Mm-mm.
It's, you've been given tools and you've been taught how to use the tools, but you still have to be the one to pick up the tools, you
Yeah.
know, because you are going to get sent back into that drift of, like you said, those weird thought patterns, that, of self-doubt and shame and guilt and whatever else is
Hmm.
down there. That's always there, right? Um, and it can pop up at any time, and you just have to know how to deal with it. So, yeah, it's a but that's amazing. I mean, that story is it's mind-boggling. I mean, the things that you've gone through and the things that you've overcome. Um, so let's fast forward to because I know your husband now and I love him, just a great, great man. Um, so so now you go into rehab maybe once, twice,
Hmm.
and but in the process, when did you meet Glenn? I should ask.
Okay. So I met Glenn. Well, first of all, let me say that I moved to Mississippi from Massachusetts in 2012. And I moved here with someone who was in the program of AA that I met in Massachusetts, and ended up not being a very healthy relationship. And so after about 2.5 years, I went back. I got the thoughts again, and that this is as good as my life is going to get. I've had love once. I'm probably never going to experience that again. I was fortunate enough to have experienced it. I might as well just go back to the way it was, and I started drinking again. Um, and finally decided to break away from this relationship that was really rather toxic. And I left my furniture, everything in this apartment where he was, along with his daughter and her boyfriend. And I walked away. I got my one little apartment and my little dog, two little dogs. I actually got another one while I was there. Um, and I said to God, if this is what it's meant for me, and this was before doing any work on myself, if it's meant for me to be alone the rest of my life, I am good with it. Um, well, come November timeframe of that year, so that was March, and November, December timeframe, I started just on Facebook. I saw someone's post that I happened to like what this gentleman said and commented. He commented back, and we started chatting back and forth. And a few weeks later, we decided to have coffee. And it was funny because I had just had my teeth whitened, so I really wasn't supposed to have coffee. So I didn't have coffee, but he did. And we chatted, and it was like just an amazing moment. And it was so that was December 6th, 2014, and we were married December 6th, 2015, because I promised my dear late friend Donna, who I told that I met a wonderful man. She said, please just tell me that you're not going to get married for at least a year. So I kept my promise. It was 1 year to the day. Um, and so then what did I find out? That we were both alcoholics.
Yeah.
Um, so we spent 4.5 years in that place. And again, we both we worked and all of that, but our evenings or long weekends, or it was either we were drinking, recovering from a drink, or planning our next drink. All of our friends drank. It was our life. And we woke up one morning after a 4-day bender. The house was absolutely trashed. I mean, there was food on the counters, and we didn't know if the dogs had been taken care of. It's a horrible disease. And I looked at him and I said, we're going to die, and our kids are going to find us, and they're going to be left with this house to clean and all of our affairs to take care of. Would you be willing to get help and go to AA? I knew it had worked for me. And he had an experience 20 years earlier with a DUI, and was, court ordered to go and get a paper signed every time he went. And once he finished that course and got all the papers signed he needed to get signed, he decided that it wasn't for him, and he went back out for 20 years. So we got sober together, actually, one day apart, because when he said yes, that he was willing to get sober and go to AA, I was like, crap, I really wasn't expecting him to say that, even though I wanted it. This is what the difference between our higher self and our lower self, our ego and our spirit. But I knew I wanted it. And yet at the same time, when he said yes, he had stopped drinking that day, and I finished the rest of the booze in the house. So, our sobriety dates are one day apart as a result. So we get to laugh about that every year. But we just celebrated 6 years together, and in sobriety. We're going we've been together 10 years. We'll be married 10 in December. But the one thing that really keyed me into knowing this guy was the one for me, and he is an amazing man. I have never been loved so much. Kevin had written a letter to me about 2 weeks before he passed away. And after he died, I wanted to get that note tattooed on my arm in his handwriting. So I have this tattoo here on my arm that says, Rick, I thought I never had purpose, ability to love, truly love, or deserved it. Then I prayed, and God sent me you. You are truly my world. Love, your husband, Kevin. I often wondered if another gentleman that came into my life seeing that would have a problem with it.
Yeah.
That I had a note from my late husband on my arm. Kevin read it, and he looked me in the eyes and he said,
Yep.
Rick,
One.
God has answered that prayer twice. And I just, it was pretty powerful. And so yeah, I wrote him a song. I sang to him when I asked him to marry me at a church that was open and affirming. And it's been an amazing journey. And we've been sober now longer than we haven't been in our marriage. And let me tell you, there is life that was waiting for us all along. And we got to do the work and look at ourselves and be willing to see um, that there was so much more. When we can take a look at ourselves, and and AA, we talk about some of the steps is you make a list of your resentments, and you look at what your part is in it. And ALA helped me to look back at that list and realize, because some of the things that I wrote on there were my resentments, your fears, the harms you did to others. Because we have to clean up our side of the street. We have to be responsible and be responsible for our lives and take that accountability. And, when I started looking back after ALA, I realized that the part about what my part is in this, because I suffered sexual abuse as a child. And that was, that was on my list. But my part in that, it's like what I'm so grateful for that, learning this in ALA, because I get to help others with this today. The only part I played in that was the story that I continued to tell myself about it.
Mm-hmm.
That I was bad, that I was unworthy, that it was my fault. That was the part I played in it, my thinking. I realized today, and AA, we say all the time, we came for our drinking, but we stayed for our thinking, because we have a thinking disease. Our thoughts shape our realities and our lives that we live.
Yeah.
And if we can recognize that and begin to change our thoughts and catch those things when the shame comes in, and recognize that that is not us, and no longer identify with that thinking, but recognize that we are love, we came from love, we have never been separated from God or from one another by whatever name you choose to call God, that we are perfect and complete, lacking nothing. And there is a place in us that we can go, and we can be all that the universe has to offer is ours. So anyway, I'm
Yeah.
rambling.
No, no, no. I love it, because that brings me to what we wanted to talk about, which was, and this was a pivotal moment for me in ALA, was we did a forgiveness exercise, if you will. I don't know any other way to explain it, because until you do ALA, you don't really know. I could try to explain it and still wouldn't give it justice. But so what you do in this exercise is that you think of everybody that you need to forgive, and then you forgive yourself. And you forgive yourself on whatever levels that you had that guilt, and that shame. And it's so experiential when you do it. I was talking to you, I don't know, a few weeks back, Rick, about this, and you would always talk to me about forgiveness and living in forgiveness. And I was like, "Yeah, it sounds great, right? It's a fantastic concept." And that's all it was to me, was a concept, because I didn't know how to do it. I couldn't just say the words and it would magically happen. And once it happened for me through the experience of forgiveness at ALA, I can't even tell you how different I felt, the lightness, the freedom. I had a friend ask me, like, "Can you explain in one word what forgiveness means to you?" And without even thinking, immediately said freedom, because
Mm.
that's what it felt like. It just felt and here's the thing, when you go through it, you don't realize all of the people that you needed to forgive, or all the reasons that you needed to forgive yourself. And it's amazing when you start, you know, really digging deep, and instead of just saying, "Oh, 1 or 2 people I need to forgive, and, oh, yeah, I need to forgive myself about that one thing," you you really dig deep, and I felt so much lighter, and kind of like your experience, like, you just feel like you're barely touching the ground when you walk.
Mhm.
And I walked in the next day, 'cause it's a multiple day, event and a multiple weekend event, the ALA, and when I walked in the next day, more than one person looked at me and said, "Oh my gosh, you look different."
Mhm.
And that's exactly what it was that I finally had. You don't realize how much of a weight it is on you, because we repress that guilt, right? And so, or the resentment that we have for that person, or the anger we have toward that person, right? We just push it down under, and we think that that's good, and now it's gone, and we're going on with our life, and it's not true. It's
Yeah.
always there, and it's there because something will happen in your life, something will be said, or you'll look
Mhm.
at that person, or whatever happens, and all of a sudden, boom, there it is again. And when you can finally let all of that go, oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Mhm.
I mean,
Absolutely.
what's your experience? Like, when did you really realize that you forgave and were living in forgiveness?
Again, for me, it was when I worked on those particular steps in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, I had to put on paper um, everyone that I had an issue with, and everyone that I had harmed. I mean, it was right there in front of me. And what, with the resentments, that my part in it, was I selfish? Was I self-centered? Was I, what was it affecting? I mean, I had to really look at that. But my big aha moment was realizing that this was learned behavior, that I was taught from a very early age that I was born into original sin, separated from my creator.
Mhm,
And that separation has been the issue my entire life. So my aha moment was recognizing that I have always been forgiven, that it was only in my thinking, that I have never been separated from God, from source. How could I be? It would be like a wave being separated from the ocean. I am one and the same. And when you talk about forgiveness, which is key, um, all I could think about was, I would hold these prisoners of war in my mind. Um, and if I saw them, if I thought about them, if their name was mentioned, anything like that, I would have that feeling, that somatic experience, that told me something was unresolved there. And when I hold prisoners of war in my mind, I'm I'm the warden of that prison, which is a full-time job. So that's where I completely understand that feeling of freedom when you let those prisoners go, and you being one of them. When you let yourself go, we can't give away what we don't have. So how do I give away forgiveness if I don't experience it for myself? If I don't know it for myself, we can't give away anything unless we've first been given and recognize it as ours. So Yeah, that's powerful stuff. And I have a situation right now in which I see how much I've changed, with a family member, and who has, that I'm currently estranged from. It's one of my daughters, and the one that actually got me started in this program, has had some, we both, because we're both in the program, and part of the program is making amends with those you've harmed. And I was telling you earlier, Betsy, that I thought after my spiritual experience and having all kinds of religious training, that I was fixed, and that was the furthest thing from the truth. I grew up in a very dysfunctional home, and I carried that stuff with me and not realizing it. And my behavior, reflected that. And so, of course, my kids were affected. So there was a lot of amends to be made, and we made them. She made them hers with me as well. But something happened, and she has gone back into, years of, like, her childhood and remembering things, and has become very bitter. And um, she had sent me a letter or a text, with all these memories. And I told her, I said, Allison, you're absolutely right. I didn't know how selfish and self-absorbed that it was all about me when you were kids. I thought I was a great dad, and some of my kids think, a couple of them think that I did okay, but um, you know, I said, and that list that you sent me, I could add 100 more things that you probably don't remember to that list that I now remember from doing the work, but I can't go back. We
Mhm.
can't change. I can't change that. And, all I can do is tell you that I regret that it happened. I'm not that person today. I love you. If you don't want me in your life, I respect that. All I want is for you to be happy, whether that includes me or not. Because what happens when we get into that frame of mind, where we think of ourselves as the victim, where we see that life is happening to us and
Mhm.
not for us, where we don't recognize the universe is rigged in our favor, but it's beating the crap out of us. That's how we see the world. We see everything that way. We will find evidence
You will
to
find
support
evidence,
the way we
and
think. We
and
will.
here's the thing, you you will look for evidence, right?
Mhm.
I currently have a sister living in anger, and it doesn't matter what you do or say, she will continue a conversation until she can find something, like, she'll almost goad you, right? Until she can find something to be angry at, and I always wonder, well, why do you want to live in anger? It's a terrible feeling, right? But maybe it's masking their own guilt or
Mm.
something. And I'm not saying that that's the case with my sister or with your daughter, but I try to think of, like, what are you masking to live in anger? Why would you want to live in anger?
Mhm.
And 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 everybody right now is saying to themselves, "Well, nobody wants to live in anger." They don't, but they go there because it's comfortable for some reason, because, like
Mhm.
you said, they will continue to find evidence, or almost create it. Do you know the people that pick fights, right?
Yep.
And you're like, Why are you doing that?" Right? They want to stay in anger. What is that?
Hmm. It's my belief is that it is, and I've read this from a lot of spiritual teachers, is that especially for us that are alcoholics and addicts, it's another drug.
Mhm,
The adrenaline rush, the juice that Dr. Hawkins talks about. You have to look at the juice that you are getting from it and ask yourself if you're willing to let that juice go. That feeling that you have of I'm the one in control. I have the power. I'm going to say how this is going to go down, and that it just fills you with this feeling, because we're addicted. We get addicted to it,
mhm,
and we become unwilling to let it go. We forget to recognize that everybody around us is a mirror for ourselves. We see ourselves in other people. When in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it says when we're disturbed, when we find some person, place, or thing, that's disturbing to us, that's when we need to look at ourselves because it's a reflection of something in us. It takes humility to be willing to say, okay, let me look at myself and not just lash out because of something someone else did or said or some experience that we have. But look at what's making us feel the way that we're feeling, because that's just one step closer to additional freedom to get rid of that stuff. And she's not there yet, and that's okay. It's part of her journey. But like you said, not only we find evidence or look for evidence, but we will also gather around us people who see the same things, see the things the same way we see them.
Right.
We will look for like energy. We've all hung out with people who have negative energy, and that's all we are is energy. I mean, if we held our hands up to microscopes, we would see particles and subatomic particles and atoms, and that's all we are in this physical form. And we're going to leave this physical form behind, and it's our state of consciousness, our memories, all of that is going to go with us. So I for one, want to be in a good place that way before this body leaves, before I leave this body, because I'm one who believes that we carry that stuff with us, and that this is, this would definitely have gotten me kicked out of the churches I attended years ago, but I don't believe this is our first rodeo.
Yeah.
And
No.
I think that we come back and continue to evolve until we get to that place where we wake up and experience the life and the joy and the freedom and the happiness and the richness that is our birthright.
Mhm. Yeah. Were you the one that gave me the book about water? The the studies that they did?
You know what? It's amazing that no, it wasn't me, but
Oh,
someone handed me just this past week a book about water, about the freezing of water and the crystallization. I don't know if it's the same book.
I think it's the same one because they talk about how okay, so to give an analogy, it's how you talk to your plants, right? They told you if you talk to
Yes.
your plants, they'll grow, right? And we all thought it was the oxygen that we were, because 'cause you're talking to your plant, you're giving them oxygen, right? And it's not. I don't think after I didn't read the whole book, but, um, for as far into it as I got, the studies were that the crystals change according to either now this is gonna sound crazy, I'm gonna sound like a crazy person when I say this. If they put positive words in front of it or negative words in front of it,
Hmm.
or if they played happy, upbeat music or, like headbanging, terrible music, not all headbanging music's terrible, but do you know what I mean? I just the really, like, dark, um, they found that the crystals are completely different in the water, and that
Hmm.
is the energy that it's reacting to, nothing else.
That's
Um
right.
yeah, and so, it was really an interesting study, but no, you do sound like a crazy person when you say, "Oh, yeah, in front of this glass of water, I put the word love, and in front of that glass of water, I put the word hate," and, the crystals,
Yeah,
froze
I
differently.
can't believe that that's synchronicity because I'm in the middle, almost to the end of that book, and I read it last night. It's just bizarre that you're bringing it up. Well, not bizarre. That's the way the universe works. But there's a study that they did in that book had nothing to do with water. It actually talked about the students in a classroom that had 3 bags of rice. I don't know if you read that, but they had 3 bags of rice in different locations. One bag they spoke, the same thing: kindness, love and gratitude to another bag they just left alone off on the corner, and another bag they um, said, opposite things. They said, you're a fool, we hate you, or whatever it might be. um, the bag that they spoke affirmations to was perfect. The rice was perfectly fine. It was healthy. You could have eaten it. The bag that they spoke negatively to it was going not moldy, but it was like whatever rice does. It was fermented. It was doing something that was not healthy. It was not eat. You couldn't eat it. The bag that they didn't say anything to was black.
Yes, that the neglect, I remember I don't know if it was rice, but it must have been the same thing. I thought it was fruit, but, yeah, the neglect was the worst.
Yeah, that it's even worse to neglect someone than it is to speak harmly to them. I'm like, wow, That is just, but if you think about it, and that we really are all just energy. I mean, just like you said, the person in the meeting that you saw, you felt her reaction. We feel one another because we are energy, and we know when we're with someone that's got, energy that's not pleasing, or not on our, not on our wavelength at that time. We can feel it.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
And it's funny how we make that judgment, right? And a lot of times we don't approach the person or we approach them with like energy, right? So we don't change the situation. So it's our responsibility to bring the energy that we want. So when you open up communication with somebody, if you are reflecting their negative energy, that's where you're going to stay,
Hmm.
right? Or if you ignore the situation altogether. And it's interesting. I just actually put a post out yesterday or the day before about this because I had a very interesting encounter where I so I met this lady on vacation and she had brought her mother, who was about 82, to this beach club. So they had to take a boat from a rickety pier, and the mother had a walker, and then they had to come up this rocky, uneven path and come down to the beach the whole night. So I went up to her and I said, "This is so wonderful that you're doing this for your mother." Now, usually when you're at this beach club, because it's on vacation and it's all fun, pumping fun music and cocktails and the whole 9 yards, right? It's very surface level. So, you talk about where are you from? What do you do? Have you been here before? And that's pretty much the extent of your conversation. And so when I started talking to her on that level, she opened up because I saw her, right? I took that chance and made a connection in a place where things should have stayed on the surface level, but I went deeper. And she opened up to me and we had the greatest conversation. She told me
Mm.
how she grew up without money, and so she has been working hard, like almost workaholic status, to be able to do this for her mom, because she always saw her parents, basically scraping everything together, to make her life wonderful. And so she wanted to give back, but she's done it at the expense of other personal relationships. And anyway, so it was just really interesting that the energy I brought to the conversation and, just making that connection because that is our power as humans is that we get to make connections with others.
Hmm.
And so many times we walk around in this world and we don't, right? "Hi, how are you?" "Fine, great, have a good day." How many times do you have that exchange,
Hmm.
right? And I thought it was just a really special thing that not only did we have that interaction, but that I could walk away from it and really, now with, like I said, or like we said, all the work that we've been doing and kind of looking inside ourselves and being more aware of how we show up in this world, um, to really go walk away from that interaction and realize what it was and how powerful it was and
Hmm.
how great it was that we're still in contact with each other.
That's
And
amazing.
and I hope to always be. She's a wonderful person. She's oh my god, she's beautiful, she's outgoing, she's smart, she's, everything. Um, it was just amazing, and I think that's what we were put on this earth to do, and
Mm.
so often we neglect that.
Yeah. I mean, that's who you are, Betsy. That's who I saw on day one. And people don't, we get up in the morning. This has been our whole, for most, it's their whole life. They get up in the morning, they do what they have to do, they go to work, they're raising a family, they make their meals, they eat their meals, they go to bed, they get up, they do the same thing another day, wondering if they're going to get their bills paid and everything that's going on in the world. And people are just weighed down and they think that this is it, that this is all there is. And it's so far from the truth. And when we can get out of ourselves and make the choice to be present in the moment with another human being, that is when the miracles start to happen. That's when people begin to wake up. That's when eyes start to open. That is powerful stuff right there, and that's who you are. And that's you've shared with these stories before. on this beach playing softball with people that just come up to you and talk to you, and we need to get out. We get to get out of ourselves.
Yeah.
We get to make the choice that I am a powerful human being. I make a difference, and I can make a difference in the lives of people all around me. But I can't do that if my head's not in the game and I'm just thinking about the next bill I have to pay, and I'm walking around with my head low. There are people all around me, and when we begin to see them and with a heart of service, just be kind. Whether it's in the grocery store, to the lady at the counter, to thank them for their service and to make eye contact with people. It's that we are energy, and we are infecting others with positive energy that makes a difference. It really, really does. And it's a choice we get to make every day.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is fear-based. The reason that people don't do it is based on fear, right? They're afraid that they might be rejected, or that, maybe they'll be laughed at, or whatever the situation is. We let our ego get in front of us, and we let fear take over, and we don't go for it. And I would say that 9 times out of 10, you're gonna be pleasantly surprised.
Hmm.
Um,
Marianne Williamson says, it's actually in a book in the Course in Miracles, but that everyone is either extending love or they are looking for love. And if
mhm.
we could see that, perhaps would be a little less judgmental with the person that's having a bad day. I mean, everyone is doing the best they can with the knowledge they have at the present moment. Most not having done any internal work looking at themselves, most still living, believing that they aren't forgiven, believing that they aren't loved, believing that they're separate from their source, their creator, and one another. I mean, if we can recognize that, we won't have those as many moments as when we get disturbed by someone else or some event or some exchange. We can see through it and still be available to offer that love and that kindness and compassion.
Yeah, we did an exercise, where we went out with our friends, we wrote posters, and it basically said, we're trying to spread, gosh, I can't even remember what it was, but it was love, fun, and compassion or something like that, right? And asking people, to either give us a hug or to honk their horn in their car or whatever it was, right? And if people didn't wanna give us a hug, they'd give us a thumbs up or a high five or whatever. And so some of these people, we would talk to them about, what's your dream? And you have no idea how many people have never been asked that question or have been waiting to be asked that question. We came across a woman, and she was doing her Instagram posting, and she said, I think what you guys are doing is great. Can I, put you on Instagram?" And when she was doing it, we asked her what her dream was, and she stopped and was, you could kinda tell the struggling in the face, right? And here come the tears. And she started crying, and we're, like, "Wow, okay, what's going on?" And she said, "I can't believe that you guys asked me that this is what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to make my dream come true, and nobody's really, you know, cared enough to ask me and to be interested." And so we found her on TikTok. That's what she was doing. She was doing TikTok, not Instagram. And, so now we follow each other on TikTok, and, she sent me a message, after we became friends on TikTok, and I can't remember what it was, but it was the coolest thing. About She just said how we touched her life and how important that was to her. And think of how simple that was.
Hmm.
We simply just went up to her and asked her what her dream was, and it was it changed her day that day, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it was amazing. So, you can make a huge impact with the smallest
Yeah.
thing. I think we think that we have to make these big gestures, and we have to be heroes, and, the whole 9 yards, and it's not. It's just show some interest. See that person, and let them know that you see them.
Yeah.
It's It's not it's scary. I know it's scary because that is so out of your comfort zone, right? Um, but once you do it a couple times, it's not
Hmm.
scary anymore because you see the reward in it, um,
Yeah.
and the benefit in it, and it's a cool thing.
We've gotten to a place, I think, too. So many people have their heads in their phones, and I was telling Glenn, he wanted to know if I want at one point if I wanted to get my car windows tinted, and I'm like, no, I don't. I'm like, that's just one more way to separate. I can't see people; they can't see me. I don't want to do that. But you're right; it's about seeing people. And Mother Teresa, I think, and I'm not going to get this quote right, but she said, not all of us can do, like you said, these world changing, amazing things, but we can do small things with world changing and amazing love or great love. And that's where the difference lies for me.
Yeah, I was telling the story yesterday. Um, so, you'll probably hear this on another podcast, but it was really an interesting story. I was at the Sky Club bar, Delta Sky Club,
Hmm.
and so, you go into those places and it's not a very social place, right? People are there doing work on their computers, and they're waiting for a plane, and maybe they have a layover, and maybe they had a delay, and nobody likes to be in an airport, and you know what I'm saying, right? And this guy walked up to the bar, and he looked at the bartender, and he said to her, "How are you doing today?" And she said, "I'm doing great." And he said, "Well, I'm glad to hear that." And she looked him straight in the eye and said, "It's a choice." And
Wow.
and he looked up and he goes, "Oh my god, you're absolutely right. It is a choice to be good, to be happy."
Hmm.
Um, but the energy in that exchange, because he came up and his energy was so positive and so happy, and it reflected off of her, and but I think the way he said it to her, the way he asked her that question was that he was truly interested. He
Hmm.
wasn't just doing one of the, "Hey, how are you today?" You know, we say it as a reflex almost.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and so that was amazing. I thought, "Way to go," she's a bartender in an airport. That's not everybody's dream job, right? There's a lot of
Hmm.
cranky bartenders in airports. Um, and, uh, and there she was just, "This is what I'm doing, and I'm gonna bring light and happiness to people's day today," and it's just a beautiful
That's
thing.
awesome. But
Yeah.
I mean, were you raised and did you learn that in school that we have that choice, that we can choose how we think and how we react to situations? I mean, I didn't get much of that until going into AA and ALA with regard to emotional intelligence. It's not something that's taught in schools, and yet I think that it's probably key for survival.
Yeah. 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 Wouldn't it be great if it was taught in schools, though?
Mm,
My daughter who's 23, she's gonna be going to ALA, and I just keep saying, "Man, if I would've done this at 23, oh, I would've been
yeah.
so much further along in, my profession, in my relationships." I mean, just everything in my own, relationship with myself. Um, yeah, so I think it's gonna be such a gift for her. I had her on the show with her, best friend, and it's such a great podcast episode because I wanted to really talk to them about what it means to be, young 20 something year olds, your early 20s, and to be choosing what you're gonna do for the rest of your life, you know?
Mm,
It starts at the age of 17, 18 that we're, pounded in high school with, "Where are you going to college? What's your career gonna be?" And never they do the what is it called? The career, matching where you take the little quiz and they're just, based on your answers, this is what you should do, right? But I don't think we properly dive into what's your passion, and, from your passion, can you find your purpose? And
hmm.
with your passion and your purpose, can you find the right career for you? Um, I think if we did more of that, there would be way more happier people on this earth, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying that, everybody has to, follow passions like, mountain biking and downhill skiing and, obviously we still need doctors and lawyers and accountants and things like that,
Hmm.
but approaching it in a way where you're living your purpose in it and
Yeah.
you're finding passion and happiness in it. So many times, even so my daughter, I did the exercise, with both of them, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And I told them, dream big, nothing's holding you back.
Hmm.
Pretend that there's no barriers in your way. And her friend, was really just open and not seeing barriers and going for it. And when it came to my daughter, she was thinking practical, because that's what we were taught, right?
Yeah.
And we were taught to think that way so that we would make sure that we could survive, take care of ourselves, provide for ourselves and things like
Hmm.
that. And it's all done in a very careful way. And you'll even have people that love you tell you not to take that risk, not to
Yeah.
take that chance. And it's not because they don't love you, it's because they love you and they don't know any other way. They're trying to protect you. They don't want you to fail. They don't wanna see you suffer. And so these are the things that they do. They tell you to play it safe and to
Hmm.
play small. And
We
that's not always a happy place.
Yeah, but again, if we look at our parents, gosh, as I'm going to be 64 pretty soon. And we look at our parents and we think, what their conditioning was like. So, I mean, my parents were being raised during World War II and all that went on with that, and the Great Depression, and
Scarcity,
they
scarcity.
carried that, they carried that with them into their family. I mean, and so yeah, when they say, well, I would tell them, I'm going to be a musician. Well, they'd probably say something. Well, that's cute, but have a plan B. We always think we need to have a plan B, and we discard our passions sometimes for our plan Bs. But you and I both read a book, and I'm going to forget the name of it, um, about your why. What's it called? Help me out, Betsy.
Uh,
Um,
becoming no, something about it,
what like what's your why? What is the
yeah,
book? I probably have a copy of it
becoming
right
your why,
here.
I don't know,
Uh, anyway,
oh,
it's about going back and what is how do you know what your purpose is? And for me, I read this book and I had some coaching, and it's really going back and looking at your life and finding the times that you were doing something that brought you great joy. And I know I was able to go back to, gosh, I was like 4 years old at a birthday party, and the what one I considered an adult, I think she was probably, I don't know, 11, 10 or 11. Seemed a lot older than me at the time. I was so impressed that she invited me to come to this party that I stayed for quite some time after the party, helping cleaned up all the tables and put things back. And she and her mother were so appreciative and thanked me over and over and over again. And I felt so wonderful. And I remember that to this day. And I mean, if I look back on many events throughout my life, my greatest joy I get, and maybe it's because I'm a supporter, but my greatest joy is in serving others, because I know when I give whatever I give away, it comes back exponentially to me.
mhm.
Jules Bindi, who was the it's Juls Bindi, Bindi. She was on my podcast, and her passion, through having an experience with learning about emotional intelligence and doing work on herself, had that same thought about, if the kids could get this. So she started writing kids books on emotional intelligence, and it's called EQ Kid Books. And EQ, like IQ, is emotional,
Yep.
you know, intelligence. EQ is for emotional um, quotient, I guess. But EQ Kid Books, and I thought that is just an amazing idea. But to find something like that, where when you love what you do, you do what you love what you do. It's finding that passion and being able to pursue it. And even if you're a cashier right now and you say, this isn't my passion, I want to be X, Y, and Z. while you're in that place, and as your journey goes on, I mean, you can still make a decision to make a difference in the life of every person that comes by your cash register. You can find purpose even in perhaps what you would think of as mundane, while you're on your journey to realizing what your true purpose is. But doing the work and looking at your past and finding out what truly lit you up is usually uh, where your purpose lies.
Yeah, and it's funny because a lot of people are like, "Well, how do I do that?" Think of a time when you can do something, you did something, and you completely lost track of time. You know, you did it for 2 hours, but it felt like 5 minutes.
Hmm.
Or you talk nonstop about it. Or when you talk about it, you completely change and you get all excited and you're talking a million miles a minute. Those are the things that you're passionate about, right?
Yes.
And it can be something super mundane. It could be reading, right?
Yep.
It could be, collecting rocks. I don't care what it is if that's your passion, now really dig into, okay, why do I love it? See, this is the other part of it. It's not I'm gonna become a professional rock collector, right? Because that's ridiculous. I don't
Yep.
know. Actually, maybe you could become a professional rock collector and, you could open up a museum and, yeah, I don't know, I mean, that's the thing that you have to explore, but it could be that you really love rocks because you love the history of where it comes from, right? And that's the geology, and that's the what I'm saying? So see yourself going down these different paths, and as the wise 23-year-old that I had on, my, daughter's friend, she said, "If you have a passion and you're young, I urge you to pursue it, and in your pursuit, you will find a way to make money at it."
Yep.
And I thought
Absolutely.
I
I
thought
mean,
that was
someone who collects rocks might find that their passion is archaeology. I mean, we just don't know. We went out to dinner one night with Andrew and my son Andrew, that you know, who you know, and
love
a
it.
bunch of his friends. And there was a woman sitting next to me, and we were talking about this very topic, about finding your passion. And she's like, well, I don't, she was a hairdresser. She's like, I don't want to do this the rest of my life. I'm like, so that's obviously perhaps not your passion. She's like, well, how do you know what your passion is? And we get on this conversation. Someone mentioned the Enneagram, and
Yes, I
she,
haven't done that yet. I have to do that.
and she starts talking about the Enneagram because she has read all the books. I mean, she was like on fire, like you just explained. You could see her face light up, her energy change. She was nonstop talking about it. She was excited about it, and I'm like, you need to look at that. I mean, this sounds like your passion. She's like, oh my goodness, I would love to be an Enneagram coach. She goes, and I know people that do that, and she left that place, I think, on a different plane.
Did
But
she enroll
that's
you?
key. Hmm?
Did she enroll you with
She
her
enrolled
energy?
me in her vision. Yes, she did.
Yes. And so, I've been talking about this for the last couple days too, is that the thing that changed in my life the most was when I believed in myself and I believed in my purpose, and I was confident in all of it. And
Hmm.
it's the same thing. Now that so before, when I talked about starting a podcast, it was like, "Well, yeah, I kinda wanna do a podcast." That was literally, right? And because I was embarrassed that people might laugh about it. Like, "What business do you have starting a podcast? Who are you?" Right? And, "You're no Joe Rogan, get over yourself." And so I came at it in a different way finally, where I was like, "You know what? This is my purpose. This is what I wanna do. This is what I'm passionate about." And now when I talk about it, first of all, I bring it up all the time, constantly. "So how are you doing?" They don't even ask me if anything's new, and I'm just tell them, like, "I started a podcast." And, and then they ask me, "What's it about?" And I tell them, and the conversations I've gotten in, just by telling
Hmm.
people what I'm trying to do, what my purpose is, and what my vision is amazing. And I think I'm not I don't think, I know that I'm enrolling them because of the belief I have, the passion I have, the confidence I have, right? Before when I did "Yeah, I'm thinking about doing a podcast." Anyway, how are you? Right? I would change the subject. There was nothing. They were like, I don't even think they heard me. They didn't care. Um, and so that's what it's all about is um, once you find your passion and you start talking about it, and like you said, she was so excited, right? She enrolled you into this whole concept and this vision, and you were excited for her and you wanted to help her. How is she going to do this? How does she accomplish this, right? Um, and that's what it's all about.
Hmm. She brought me into her energy. I
Mhm.
could I could feel it, and it got me excited. So that's really what enrollment is. And I would caution people too that when you're what I call your knower, that intuitive, still small voice or the guts feeling or whatever it may be, when you know what your purpose isn't meant to be shouted off of a mountaintop to get everybody's input, because no one's going to know the experience that you're having inside you right now, with that purpose. And it's for you, and it's for you to follow. We are all here to fulfill a purpose, and we're all of our purposes are different. So asking for others' input sometimes can open you up to things that perhaps are not positive. So just guard yourself against that. I mean,
Mhm.
certainly you want to share the excitement of what you're doing. Um, but there are naysayers out there that will expect you to have a plan B. You just keep on keeping on. Follow your heart. It never fails.
Yeah, well, actually, this was used in a different, more funny, way is, Teflon, right? You need to have that Teflon coat on you and, uh, and realize that when those negative things come in, it's hitting Teflon, right? And it's
Hmm.
just and, the funny way in which that was said to me, and I'm repurposing it, if you will, was a friend of mine, would eat, pot cookies before he went to his relatives. And I was like, "What do you" he goes, "I gotta go eat a Teflon cookie," and I'm like, "What the hell's a Teflon cookie?" And he's like, "It's" he goes, "It's a pot cookie, but I use it before I go to my relatives. It's like Teflon." 'Cause he'd be high and he wouldn't care.
I don't want any of that shit to stick. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Oh god.
That's
Anyway, but
funny.
no, yeah, it's all about, um, bringing yourself into a way of being and, that is like Teflon, right? Where the negative stuff doesn't stick, and
Hmm.
when you choose to listen to the negative stuff, right? When is it gonna serve you? Is it serving you? Usually it isn't serving you, but there might be if you hear it a few times, right? There might
Hmm.
pause to think a little bit that, maybe I should listen to a little bit of that, but if it doesn't align with you, doesn't resonate with you, it's not for you, and let it go.
Yeah. I like the fact that you use the word doesn't serve you, because I think one of the other things that has changed for me is not looking at it. Life is just about experience. There is no failure. It's an experience. And experiences either serve us or they don't serve us. And we learn from them and we move on. And that doesn't, no matter what it is, we just view, we always are. I'm, quick to view things as, good or bad, pretty or ugly, whatever it might be, all the duality stuff, but they're just experiences. And every experience of my life, and I'm sure you can say the same thing, has brought you and me to where we are today. We've made it through everything. We have learned through it all. And here we are. They were just experiences. So when things appear to be negative, I need to look at those too. I need to look at those too, because again, it's just an experience. I don't have to label it today. Um, and that book, by the way, it came to mind, is called "Start with Why" by Simon Sinek. Is that right,
Start
Betsy?
with
I think.
why. Yes, that's the
Okay.
one, that's the one, and
Yeah.
I just wanna say real quick because 'cause I'm writing down the book the books. We're gonna figure out the name of the water book. Um, I'm writing down "Start with Why." I'm gonna put these all in the show notes. Um And then, Jules Bindi I have in here, the EQ kids books, I'll look that up, but I'll get all that information from you or I'll Google it and figure it all out, and I'll put that in the show notes, and before we go, I also want to mention, which I did not mention, which I apologize for, is that Rick has his own podcast, The Awakened Collective,
Hmm.
and it's I don't how many episodes do you have now? You probably have a million.
I'll 39.
39.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I will give the information, so that you can follow him on Facebook and also, probably your website too is
Yes, please.
a good source. So your website, Facebook, and then the podcast. So you guys can, tune in and enjoy all of the, wonderful guests that he has on and all the spiritual guidance, which I'm not gonna give you
Mm.
here. I give a different type of spiritual guidance here.
You remind me though that we don't do this life alone, Betsy. I used to think that, I've got this figured out, I got it from here, but I have learned, and perhaps it's with age, but I've learned that I cannot do my life alone. I need others, and there are certainly people in our lives that we can surround ourselves with, because we often hear that we are the average of the five people we spend the most time with. So
Mhm.
sometimes we need to change people, places, and things and surround ourselves with those people who will encourage us and see us and speak to us, just like we experienced in ALA, where we allowed ourselves to be open to feedback from other people. That's important too, but we need to make sure that there are people who see us and are of the same energy, and
Yes,
can help,
yes.
like
And
you are for me.
oh my god, and you are for me. We check in with each other all the time because that's important for us to we do a little grounding, don't we?
I was just going to say, you keep me grounded.
Um, um, but speaking of ALA, Ascension Leadership Academy, we've referenced it, quite often in this podcast, and I just wanna say that I am not gonna put a link to ALA in the show notes. I would rather have you contact myself or Rick directly, and, we can discuss that with you. It is something that we like to do on a referral basis rather than just putting it out into the wide open Google space. So there's a reason for it, and we can talk to you about that, but it's really important, work that they do there, training that they do there, all the way from self-development to leadership, which is, it sounds crazy because you're thinking, "Well, I don't need to be a leader," but you do, because we all need to be leaders of our lives. We need to be leaders of ourselves and to help be leaders in community. How would you explain that, Rick?
Yeah, I mean, it's a servant, a servant leader,
Mhm.
and we are all leading whether we realize it or not. We're leading someone, whether it's our families, our kids, our spouses. We're always in some mode of either following someone's guidance or leading others with our guidance. And the whole word experience, just if and you've probably heard this as well, but if you try to explain to someone who's never tasted a mango what a mango tasted like, you're going to fail miserably, because this is something ALA and pretty much with any experience, you've got to experience it for yourself, to know what it is. You can't tell someone what a mango tastes like. And ALA is very similar. It's an experience. It's a life changing experience. But to try to put it into words, doesn't do the trick. It's
No.
as simple as that.
No, it's almost impossible. The only thing that I can say for people that knew me before and people that know me after is, can you see the change in me? And and that's the best way to explain it to people.
Hmm.
Um, you can't yeah, I just like you said, it's an experience, and, we can talk about what you're looking for in your life, what your dream is, um, maybe, where you feel stuck, and I can tell you that it's a tool. It will be a tool to get you there.
Yeah, one of my coaches said that a friend of hers, it took a year for her to get her friend to come in, and her friend said that I saw how much you changed. She goes, but I kept my eye on you, and I saw that you never went back to the way you used to be after a year. So I'm in. So
That that was an analyzer, right?
yeah, I'm sure she
They
probably had
they
her
needed
spreadsheet.
they needed data over time, you're right, on a
Yes.
spreadsheet, and then they were ready to jump in, but before
Yeah.
that, no, we're not going there, yeah. God, I love that personality quadrant. it really serves you when you learn about the personality quadrant and you're able to then see people in their quadrants, and it
Hmm.
helps you to then communicate effectively with them, right? When you know where they're at,
Yes.
you can open up that communication space so that you have effective communication in it with them, right?
Yep.
And just, since I brought up analyzer, those people, they like evidence and data and hard facts and, they're the ones that go down the rabbit hole, right? They've gotta do the research, before they buy a refrigerator,
Hmm.
you know, they've Googled it for 5 days and, everything else. So when you're talking to those people, you're not gonna get them on an emotional level very often.
That's right. They're not into woo woo.
Mm-mm, and they don't wanna hear, "How should you feel?"
I just
No.
love my new refrigerator. It's so pretty. You need to get one.
Yeah, no, they wanna know, like, how much energy it consumes every day and, how much money they can save by buying this new energy efficient, refrigerator and, exactly what temperature,
Hmm.
is it by 1 degree or can I go a half a degree? You know? It's,
Yep.
yeah, no, it's seriously, so it's God, the work that you can do and the things that you can discover about how to communicate more effectively with the people in your life is amazing because
Hmm.
you find out that you've been doing it wrong for a long time, um,
Yes.
regarding a lot of people because we come from "I," right? So when we go into communication, we come from "I," and it should be that we're coming from "we."
Mm.
But we just fall back into that this is what I want to tell you. This is what I want you to believe. This is what I want you to know about me. Instead of coming into the conversation of discovery, right?
Hmm.
Asking questions and realizing where they're coming from.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's crazy.
Love
But,
that.
yeah. All right, well, I have kept you long enough, sir. I mean, we did kinda joke that we'd be here until noon. And we could for sure be here until noon. But like I say, so far with every single one of my guests, I've said there's gonna be a part 2 because we have so much more to talk about.
Mm.
Because we haven't even gotten into let's do it real quick. I just changed my mind. Everybody stay, don't go anywhere. Um, you came out of ALA, and I could see the change in you. Um, but you decided to write a book with your son,
Hmm.
and you
So,
yeah, go ahead and tell us.
so yeah, that was my aha moment. I was actually in the pool at my house and it just hit me. So, as I said earlier, and I'll try to make this brief, that, we grow up in I know I did, many of us out here probably did too, grow up in dysfunctional families. And we don't realize that, our parents did the same thing and we are products of our conditioning and they pass on to us. I grew up with beliefs that my parents passed on to me that I just assumed were true, but I never examined them to determine whether or not they were my beliefs. Anyway, then I have kids. I was 22 when I got married. I'm very young. It's hard to imagine. And then I raised children with the same conditioning with which I was raised in. And it caused damage. And I was finally able to see that through working AA, but ALA really helped me with that. And my son is also in ALA. He's a coach. He's the one that invited me to come and said to me on the phone in tears, "Dad, I know our relationship has gotten a lot better, but I really think we can still take it up a notch. And I would love for you to join me on this journey." And how does a father say no to that? So I said yes. And that's what got me on the ALI journey, which I am forever, forever grateful for.
And then you called
But
me.
hmm,
And then you called me
yes, I did.
to get me on the ALA
You
journey.
were one of the first people I thought of. But my son and I had a falling out, years ago, and we didn't speak for about a year and a half, and that's another story in and of itself. But we sat down and talked about. I just said, Andrew, I called him after that event in the pool. I said, I think we're supposed to write a book. I think we're supposed to write a book about generational trauma
Mm,
and the truth that you can heal from generational trauma. That it's again like we shared on this podcast about forgiveness. and looking at your part in things, and just recognizing that people are doing the best they could do. My parents were doing the best they could do, and I'm sure yours were too, and with the knowledge they had and what was passed down to them. And gosh, if you go back generations, it was pretty ugly. So I think we're doing a little better, but it's always progress, not perfection. So we decided we were going to write a book together, and we started that. I've got about 3 chapters done. He's got a couple of chapters coming up next, and he's been out straight. But we're working on that book, and it's going to be about a father and son's journey through healing from generational trauma. And I hope to have that out sometime in the near future. But
Yeah,
anyway,
and
thanks.
stopping generational trauma,
Yes.
putting an end to it. That's and I'm glad that you brought that up because I did think about that, earlier on when you were talking about the fact that we did the best we could do, our parents did the best that they could do. It's all these tools that were handed down, and they weren't always good tools, right? Um,
Hmm.
they were handed down, and that's all they knew, they to think that your parents didn't love you, I just don't think that's true.
No.
Sometimes they don't know how to love. Um, they were afraid of it, they weren't equipped for it, whatever it is, but that's where that forgiveness comes in, realizing that they did the best that they could do,
Hmm.
with what they had been given, and, it's our responsibility now, um, to change that,
Hmm.
and
And
that's
when
what you
we
guys did,
forgive,
amazing.
like you said, when we are in the seat and we're able to forgive, the freedom that comes with that. We think many of us, our parents are gone, but we can still experience forgiveness. And our parents genetically live within us still. So my mom and dad are getting to experience what it's like to look at yourself and work on yourself and be free from addiction and alcoholism and all that went on with them. So we carry our generationally, we carry our family with us. So they're
Mhm.
learning and growing too.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing, and Andrew's, getting married?
He is. And he's coming to visit in a couple of weeks. We're going to him and Dylan and the 3 kids are coming for a few days here in Mississippi, and then we're going to take a trip and go spend 3 or 4 days in Destin. So we're looking forward to that.
Oh, that's fantastic, yeah. I haven't
Look
met
for the
Dylan yet,
pictures.
but they're super cute in pictures.
Yeah, they are wonderful kids. They really are.
Yeah, so you got
Oh,
3
real quick, I
new
want to tell you,
grandkids.
I got to tell you some news. So my oldest daughter, Abby. So talking about, when we get in our heads. So it was a few years ago. She's moved to Massachusetts from Pennsylvania. Her husband's getting his master's of divinity. They have 4 children living in a very small place. Abby is one of the most talented people I know. She has an incredible voice, and she's going to be 40. I'm going to have a 40-year-old this year. And she said to me a couple of years ago, Dad, I'm in this church. She goes, the musicians are just amazing. There's so much talent here, but I'm feeling like I've missed the boat. I feel like they're all really young, and I'm getting older now. And we had a conversation that you are never too old to live your best life, and you continue to follow your passions. And um, she's coming out with her first single on Mother's Day. She's been teasing the social media world with clips, and just the little clips have brought tears to my eyes. So I can't wait for it. I mean, she has been surrounded by people who love her, see her, support her. She's got videographers, and amazing musicians, and they've put together this. I can't wait to see it. So I'll be sure and let you know when it comes out. But it will be out about Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, send me well, put it on your Facebook.
I will. Oh, absolutely. It'll be all over the place.
A proud
So,
dad. I love it.
yeah.
Alright, well, I wanna thank you so much for being on today, and thank you for being my friend. Thank you
Mm,
for opening up to me that first day on that Zoom call and just making me feel welcome. You've always been an inspiration to me and a huge support. You are the person I can go to. I know that, like you said, just will give me unconditional love, will smack me if I need to be smacked, will love me if I need to be loved, and I thank you for that. That's amazing.
mm. I love you, my friend. It has been my pleasure to be here with you today. I can't wait for round two.
Yes, yes. All right. Well, goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, Rick. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. And don't forget to look in the show notes for all the information that I'm going to put in there.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Hey, if today's conversation inspired you, please consider leaving a review, commenting, and sharing this episode with somebody who could benefit. And don't forget to follow us on YouTube, subscribe, and follow on YouTube to stay updated. And I want to shout out to Audio Alchemy Productions for making this podcast a success. Until next time, keep embracing your journey and empowering your life.